One of our favorite activities is going to the beach. This is the way my whole family unwinds. Maybe it is because my mother loved the ocean and sunsets and sunrises, but for me, the beach is where I find comfort. It helps that we live in Vasai, which we have like a array of beaches that we can choose from. We live along the coast, so we have not one but like several beaches. It's our most favorite activity to go to the beach and unwind and enjoy the sea, the sounds. And recently we spent a whole day at the beach. Now it was super fun, but by the time like a little after 3, it got a little hot. So at that time I had an idea. I thought, hey, it would be fun to have a tent. And that's where my journey begins. Hello. So I'm going to set up this tent here and I'm going to see, I don't know if am I in the frame? So I first bought a tent on Amazon. There are many cheap tents available on Amazon. And I bought that and we tried out a few tents. And finally I chose one tent which was quite nice. It was big, it was spacious. And we took it to the beach. And hi, I'm going to be setting up this tent right now. And I'm going to do it all by myself. And see if I can do it, okay? So, wish me all the best! It was so windy and the tent, the pegs, the quality wasn't really strong, so the tent just flew off. I don't know how to fix it, and so moral of the story is sometimes you try and fix a tent and you can't. I have to now Google and find out how to do it. So it's a nice thing. Once I figure it out, I think it'll be good. Till then I'm gonna go. Bye. The sun is gonna go soon. Since I can't do the tent, might as well watch a nice sunset with people driving around. It's okay. Even if you fail in life, it's fine. At least you get a beautiful sunset. Yay. Bye. I was very discouraged and I thought, oh, can a better tent be available? So then started my journey with searching for tents. What are tents? Because a person like me who doesn't really go camping would not know all these things, like what are pegs. And so basically pegs are what you hold the tent down. And you would think that the sand would not hold a peg, but a good quality peg can even, set itself into the sand, and it's pretty cool. So I started researching these things, and after buying the Amazon tent and not having a very great experience and it literally flying away, I thought, okay, let's go a little better. Let's increase our budget slightly and get a better quality tent. So then was round 2. It took us a little time to zero in on a good tent, and then when we got one, we said, okay, let's try it. Hi, so we're here at the beach. And I'm going to be setting up the tent, part 2. Since the first time I set it up, it was like a dud and the tent was flying. So here it is, part 2 of the tent setup at the beach. So this round was with a stronger tent, more or less the same size, but I think what happened was the pegs were stronger, so the base of the tent was very solid. open and go in. But obviously I've not been reading instructions, which are pretty easy to understand. But this part... As I'm again realizing, a person should not set up a tent alone. Especially in windy conditions. It's on the beach, definitely it's hard to do it alone. I did it, I was really happy, but then this big tarp that goes over is a little confusing. So I got stuck in that one. But otherwise, setting up a tent is not recommended to do alone, even if it's a fancy tent. Okay, so that's again the lesson I'm learning. Now we're all gonna set it up together. Okay, bye. Come. But what we had trouble with was the tarp, I think it's called, that goes over it, which otherwise would make the tent quite dark and protect us from the sun. We found that we didn't need that, because even without it, I mean, it was a great adventure trying to get that on. We still haven't successfully done so. But eventually even the base coat of the tent stayed on really well. I've heard of many pop-up tents and all that, but I feel like the beach condition is very different, and you really need to have a very strong foundation or a system in place that the tent doesn't fly away. I would say if you're going to the beach and setting up a tent, don't go for one of those cheaper tents on Amazon. But if you're going hiking or if you're going in a controlled environment, although I don't know if the environment would otherwise be controlled, because wind is there everywhere, and I don't know, unless it's summer and it's static and you don't feel anything, like no air, and I don't know why you'd be out anyways. But the cheaper tents on Amazon aren't really strong enough or stable enough to hold against environment. So when you're buying a tent, I would advise go for a little more expensive one, which is more stable and which would help you be in weather the environment a little better. I do believe that our adventures with the tent will continue. I think this is a great asset to bring along whenever you go to the beach, and we really loved it. We really love the process. I think there are a few lessons that I've learned, so I'd like to share those with you. Number one, it's hard to set up the tent alone at the beach. Even with 3 people, it was difficult. So remember that. Don't be so brave and think, oh, I can set this up alone. I couldn't do it. I really wanted to, but it wasn't really possible. But because of the windy conditions, it was difficult. Like pegs were flying, the tent was flying. So it's not a one-man thing or a one-woman thing. It takes 2 or 3 or maybe even 4. Number 2 is, in most cases, you will have wind to weather. And in that situation, it is very handy to bring some weights along with you, whether it is holding the tent down with your bag or your food or your flask, or if you want to carry, if you have a car, then carry like bricks or something to hold the pegs down to keep the tent more stable. Number 3 would be get a sleeping bag. What happens in the base of the tent, it's nice and even the sand is soft, but the sand is a bit wet also. Of course, good tents would be waterproof, but I would say a sleeping bag makes things really cozy and comfortable. So that would be my advice, to carry a sleeping bag with you, or I wouldn't say a quilt, because what happens with the sleeping bag is you can roll it. But so that really helped us. So we bought a sleeping bag along, which we could kind of rest into the tent very comfortably. Number 4 is, again, depends on the budget of what you're buying, but I have found in my research to get a tent which is UV protection and of course waterproof, because when we were in the tent, and we got a very nice tent. When we were in the tent, we literally felt cool in the tent. Even though it was the hot sun, it was really, really warm weather outside. But because of the UV protection, the tent cooled down inside. It's a different thing that we wanted the sun, but it's smart to invest in a tent with UV protection and, of course, weatherproofing, like waterproofing. I would not recommend, especially in India, I would not recommend going out camping in the rain. Like when it's raining, go out camping, because I don't know if we have those kind of completely weather sealed, weatherproof tents, but which will be completely dry inside. They do give lots of like Coleman and even Decathlon give guarantees about the weatherproofing and all, but especially Bombay monsoon is not very advisable. Also, one of the things we got was a little ledge that kind of allowed us to keep our shoes outside and kind of step into the tent. That helps keep the sand out. So when you're buying a tent, look at those aspects as well. It would really come in handy, especially the UV protection. Number 5 is obvious. A good quality tent will come with this. But when you are buying your tent, make sure it has air vents. Our tent had about 3 or 4 air vents, and one of the air vents was really cool because it had a photography vent where you can kind of zip up and take photographs, and we were taking pictures of birds. So that comes in handy, not just for photography's sake, but for breathing, of course, because a tent can tend to be a little stuffy. Number 6 is maybe a wish list for me, because one of the things we realized when we had to fold our tent and fold our sleeping bag was we wished we had a car which we could just dump the tent and dump the sleeping bag and then do it later. But when you have a big, like when you have a simple tent, like a tent that you can hold in your hand, it's fine. But the bigger the tent, the more professional the tent, the more you need space. And bikes don't carry big tent. So we had a 3 people tent or a 4 people tent, and that was okay to carry on the bike. But it's nice if you have the luxury of a car to have the tent in your like in the dicky. So it's always helpful to have that. We don't have that, but definitely it's a wish list. Number 7 is more practical. I think what happens is, when you choose a tent, I would always advise to choose a tent bigger than your family size or bigger than the size you need, because tents are very compact. So we chose a 3 people tent, and because we are 2.5, as in we have a kid, so it comes in handy and we had a lot of space. But ideally, if you have 4 people, it gets a bit tight. So you should choose it, like I would advise, if you're 3 or 4 people, then choose a 6 size tent, because it gives you enough room to move around, maybe sit, maybe one person can sleep and one person can sit. So I would advise that if you can afford it. It's not, the difference is not so much. So I would generally say, if you're planning to get a tent, don't get a 3 people or a 4 people. Don't get the exact amount of who your group is. Get a slightly bigger one. That might help. Number 8 is, don't forget to carry snacks and maybe a flask of coffee or tea, because eventually, I mean, you like water, you may even want juice, you may even enjoy a snack, but sometimes it's nice to have a cup of tea as well. And we had that. The first time we didn't carry a cup of tea and I was like craving chai. But make sure you pack a bag of food and a bag of stuff, because it's super fun when you're inside the tent and you've got this beach and you want to kind of munch on stuff. So we had like nachos and some dip and some sandwiches. So whatever it is, remember, because I think the art of having a picnic or art of enjoying yourself for a day and just unwinding is kind of gone because everyone's so busy. But it's fun. It takes about 15-20 minutes extra to pack some sandwiches and carry it. But it's super fun, especially in a tent. Number 9 is for the birders. I have a friend who's a birder, Girish, and he advised me that to get neutral colors, like maybe a green or a very faded or turquoise blue, which is not very attractive to the birds. What we saw when we had got, our tent is kind of black and blue, and it's quite beautiful that the birds, when we were inside the tent, the birds started coming around us because they didn't see any movement. So the tent becomes like a structure which they're not afraid of. So especially if you're a birder, especially if you're a photographer, remember this, that when you're inside the tent, and of course I talked about the little vent that you can take a photograph from if you unzip, but it's super fun to have these kind of tents where you can take photographs. So get a color that's neutral, and that may come in handy. Number 10 is use the wind to do your dusting. When we were packing the tent, I found that when I went in the direction of the wind kind of took the dust away, and I didn't have to dust or clean the tent at all. So use the elements for your advantage. I even used the wind to help me fold the tent because it was creating these straight lines for me, and then I was able to, of course it's tough and it's pretty much like a workout, but it was super fun. And use your elements. I would always say work in tandem with nature, and use the elements, use gravity, all those aspects to help you pack up your tent. So in conclusion, adding tents into your life can enhance a little bit of joy, but it's challenging. But that's also what life is, right? Why not for a little bit of joy? So that's all I have for you from the beach today. It's nice to have some sort of shade. We keep coming to the beach, so it'll be nice when it's really hot. Like it is almost 3 right now in the afternoon, so it's pretty hot, but in the tent it's cool and it's windy and it's nice. So setup takes a little time, but it's totally worth it. Alright, thanks for watching. Bye.